Your seat, if you would, please. Go ahead and find your seat, if you would, please. We're going to talk here for a few minutes tonight. We've never done this before, but that shouldn't shock you that we're going to do something we've never done before. I want to talk for a few minutes tonight, and I'll introduce Brother Rick and Edna here in just a second for you that do not know them. But we're going to be talking about learning from life's experiences. There are three ways that we learn. There are three ways that we grow: by the books we read, the people we meet, and the experiences we have. Outside of those three things, you'll be the same next year as you are today. So we want life's experiences to count for as much as they possibly can. Now, let me just sort of walk you through something here, and I'm just going to sit down with these folks, and I'll go ahead and introduce them. A few who don't know them, this is Miss Edna. I've known her for, 35 years, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Brother Rick Walters, Brother Rick surrendered to preach under my ministry many, many years ago, and they've been pastoring now for years, I think 17 years where they are now, and I've served in other churches and so forth. They went through a pretty horrendous series of events last year, and we want to talk about that tonight in hopes that it'll be a blessing and a help to you, and then we're taping it, and we hope that as it goes out over the internet, maybe it'll be a help and a blessing to some other folks. Let me give you a couple of verses tonight as a scriptural basis for what we're talking about. Proverbs 27:17 says, "Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend." What does that mean? If you're going to take a piece of iron and if you're going to change it, if you're going to sharpen it or change it, you got to have something at least as hard as that iron, preferably harder. Now, I believe what Solomon was saying there is this: it takes humans to shape humans. We interact with each other. I said this to you a week or so ago. After I preached 5 times in the Dominican Republic, the last service, I said to those folks, I said, we will never be the same because of these 5 services, these 5 hours we spent together. You changed me, I've changed you. We'll never be the same again. Iron sharpeneth iron. Let me give you another verse. Ecclesiastes, chapter number 1, verse number 9. The thing, now watch this. The thing that hath been is that which shall be. The thing that has been is what's going to be. And that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Now, I chose that verse for this reason. What has happened to Rick and Edna may not happen to you, but it may. But I can promise you this: something is going to happen to you in your future that, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, it's going to challenge your faith. You hear me quote this all the time. Dr. Adrian Rogers said, "The faith that cannot be tested cannot be trusted." If you have not yet had your faith tested, you will. It's just a matter of when and how. And so we want you to know that although what happened to Rick and Edna may not be the very same thing that happened to you, but it may. Because somebody will hear this, somebody will see this, and they will identify completely and totally because they'll be going through the same thing. But the principles are the same whether you go through the same thing or not. Now, we learn 2 ways. Number 1, we can learn by living life. How many have ever learned a hard lesson by just living life? Just those lessons are 2 things. They're expensive and they're unforgettable. Expensive and unforgettable. There's a better way to learn, and that's learning by listening to others. Have you ever gotten so frustrated you sat down with a young person and tried to explain to them why they shouldn't do the dumb thing they're doing because you did it, and hey, we can predict that it's not going to turn out good. Been there, done that. And then when they look at you like, and you know what they're thinking? Yeah, that was you. It's going to be different with me. Mm-hmm. And so we just walk away shaking our heads saying, I hope I live long enough to see you go through this and get some sense. So we learn 2 ways. James McDonald said this. You've seen this statement before because we have filmed a number of testimonies in this church and shared them with you. James McDonald said, keep your heart alert to the powerful stories of God at work in your church. We don't have to look to different parts of the world to find God working. You can see God working right here. Amen. You don't have to go back 100 years. The same God that worked in D.L. Moody's life works in our lives today. So with all of that said, tonight I want you to hear the story, and we're going to hear the story from Brother Rick and Miss Edna, from this preacher and his wife, who faced death last year through a crisis in his health. You that have been in this church a while, you've heard me talk about him over and over. I probably mention him more than I think I do. I probably mention him more than I intend to. But when you talk to somebody almost every week of your life, and you've been friends for as long as we've been friends, and you know each other as well as we know enough about each other to put each other in jail and hell.
Amen.
And so we got to stay tight. we have decided to tell on each other. It's just going to be a first class mess. Brother Rick was in the hospital. I'm not going to tell the story. I'm going to let them tell it. His doctor had completely given up on him, gave him no chance for recovery. Now, that's hard when a doctor says that. So tonight, we want to present to you the real-life story of Rick and Edna Walters. Now, I've decided to do this by asking them a series of questions, sort of like an interview. Just pretend you're listening to Focus on the Family, all right? This is Focus on Rick and Edna, all right? All right, so we're just going to go through a few questions. Number one, how long have you two been together?
We've been married almost 47 years. It'll be 47 in November. We've been together. We've known each other since the 3rd grade, and so I didn't like him back then. So.
Say there's hope for some of y'all. So y'all been together a long, long, long time.
Yes, sir.
You want to add something, Brother Rick?
No, I was going to someday she still don't like me.
Just so you'll know, she followed him for 20 years of military service.
Right.
And he was injured in Vietnam, fairly seriously there, and is still having a lot of problems, repercussions from all of that, the Agent Orange and all that stuff. So they've been through a whole lot together. So how long have y'all been in the ministry?
Oh, about 27 years.
Okay. And he's been assistant pastor, several different churches, and then pastoring for 17 years. You can't get to his church from here.
That's true.
You go to nowhere, you turn right, and then you take a path to get to their church. So they've been in the ministry now going on 30 years in some form of ministry. Now here's where it gets good. What is the most memorable thing that's ever, I don't want to ask both of you, the most memorable thing that's ever happened to you in the ministry? Let's start with you, Edna.
I think probably the most memorable thing to me was I led our grandson to the Lord. He had been down there for Bible school, and I was taking him home, and he kind of leaned against the window, and pretty soon he said, "Nana, you know what I just did?" And I went, "No, bud, what'd you do?" He said, "I just asked Jesus to come into my heart." Woo. So I kind of talked to him a little bit. He was 8, yes. So I kind of talked to him a little bit to make sure he did understand, and he did. He really did.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
It don't get much better than that, does it? You hold a revival and have 1,000 people saved, but when your grandson gets saved,
Oh, yeah.
it's different. Brother Rick, what's your most memorable event?
Wow, it's an ongoing thing, preacher. There's so many things, and there's some things in the future I haven't seen yet. But if I had to narrow it down, I'd say it was probably when you sent me to Victory Baptist College, and I took the Go Plan, which was a soul winning club Dr. David Wood puts out. And it gave me a passion for my burden for people, gave me a direction to go, and it just gave me a confidence that it's not about me, it's about him. And I've had many people say yes to what God's told me to do, and you've been present in some of those, and I've had some say no, but it's all been what God's told me to do. So.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, and we hadn't talked about this, so he may not have an answer. I'm just curious. Do you have any idea how many people you've been able to lead to the Lord just in personal soul winning?
No. I know it's in the thousands. I don't know. God's just opened that door for me, and His blessing. I had one deacon tell me, he says, "You see Jesus in everything." I said, "Yeah, aren't we all supposed to do that?" I said, "He is in everything. He's there. And if you don't know him, let me tell you, it's the best thing that could ever happen to you. That's salvation, and to know somebody loved me that much to send his son to die for me."
Amen. All right. What's the most difficult thing you've ever faced in the ministry? Either one of you want to go first, or?
Seems kind of strange because Rick was in the military for 20 years and we moved all over. But I think one of the hardest things for me was when first assistant pastor, and we felt like God was moving us. And it was very scary for me that first time. And I remember sitting down with you and Miss Jane, and you said, why? And I went, "Yeah, but we know people here and we're involved in the church." And you said, "Don't you think God is in Lawton, Oklahoma?" And you gave me a verse, 2 Timothy 1:7. God is not the author of fear. And I've carried that with me a long, long time. But I think probably one of the hardest things for me was moving at that point.
Probably the most difficult, and I know you've experienced it, and anybody that's in any ministry, even on a volunteer basis, has. It's where I had a friend, we went where we're at now, and him and I would walk every morning, we'd do things together, and I had the privilege and honor of doing his wife's funeral, and then things happened, and he left the church, and we haven't communicated hardly at all, and I didn't handle it all right either. It's not all his fault, but that hurts, and it hurts anytime somebody leaves, anytime you pour your life into somebody, anytime you to use your words, anytime you connect and you celebrate with somebody and you cultivate, you grow, you challenge one another to grow in the Lord, and then you turn around and they're not there. Not that they disagree with you. That's a normal thing. That's common, and I encourage that among our people to be open and honest. But I think that's probably the most difficult thing, to have people just leave you like that.
Can I tell you one more thing? When Rick was assistant pastor, 3 different churches, and he told me that God had called him to preach. God had called him to be a pastor. And I said, no, he hasn't. God has not done that. And I said, God has not called me for you to pastor. Because I looked at pastors' wives, and I said, I cannot ever be that. God had to work really, really hard on me. And but I thought all pastors' wives either sang or played the piano or taught a Sunday school class. And it took me a long time for God to finally show me that's what he wanted. And the church we're in now, we couldn't have asked for a better pastorate because the people don't expect anything of me. They just want me to love them, and I can do that.
She's real good at that. And the laugh. Keep her laughing.
All right, now let's get into what happened last year. Last year, Brother Rick wound up in the hospital with a life-threatening problem, and he doesn't remember a great deal about it. He was out. He just has almost no memory. And so Miss Edna's getting her hanky out.
Get the hanky out.
But sort of walk us through that. What happened and sort of what took place?
Okay. We were in Kansas City. We had gone up for a meeting. We were getting ready to put my mom in a nursing home. And we were in Kansas City, and Rick had not felt very well that day. And so we were headed for home, and we had stopped, and he had gotten sick a couple of times. And so I was going to drive. So as we drove, and we were about an hour down the road, and I told him, I said, I've got to pull in here. I've got to get out and walk a minute because I don't do a lot of the driving. He does most of the driving. And I don't see after dark at all. And I said, we have got to decide what we're going to do. So we pulled into a quick stop or whatever. And when I came back outside, he was just almost on the ground. And I said, what are we going to do? And he said, you're going to take me to that hospital right up the road. So I took him up to the hospital, which really was just like 2 blocks up the road. And they thought he was having a heart attack. And so they did all of their tests. They did their EKGs and all that kind of stuff. And the doctor told me, he said, we're going to air flight him back to Kansas City, Missouri. And I went, oh, no. We live towards Springfield. And he said, no, ma'am. This man is really, really sick. He has to go to Research Hospital. So they air flighted him. I had to call my family to come and get me because I couldn't drive back. It was too dark.
So you were sitting beside the road.
We were at the hospital in Harrisonville,
At the
Missouri.
hospital, not knowing anybody,
No.
and he leaves in a helicopter.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So they took him, my brother and his wife and my sister came to Harrisonville and got me. And we were about an hour and a half from them. So they had to come get me and take me back to Kansas City. We went by the hospital and made sure he was in, and I was just going to stay. And my brother said, no, you're going home with us. And anyway, so that was on a Saturday night, really late. When I saw Rick again on Monday, he was fine. He was sitting up in the bed. He was talking to our assistant pastor and seemed perfectly fine. When I saw him again on Wednesday, he was strapped down. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know anything that was going on. So I tried to explain to them, have you told him where he is? He was in Vietnam. They've helicoptered him in here. They have him strapped down. And I figured that's what it was. So I tried to explain to Rick where he was, and he seemed fine with that, but it didn't last. Let's see, that was Wednesday. I tried to talk to the nurse on Thursday, and I said to her, whatever you have him on can't be good, because this is not Rick. Rick won't like what you're doing, and Rick may not like what you tell him, but Rick will do what you ask him to do, anything to get better. And she kind of pushed it off and said, no, this is it. Well, a couple of times through the week, a couple of the other doctors had come in and checked on him and pushed around on his stomach, and they said he's coming right along. You know, it would take several weeks, but he would be fine. On Saturday, we called to check on him, and the nurse said, the doctor wants to meet with you. And I said, okay, we're on our way. When we got there, it was about noon, and she said, the doctor will meet with you at 1 o'clock. And I said, okay. My daughter was there, and I said, let's go have some lunch, and we'll come back. And she said, oh, no, don't leave. Don't leave him. Go in and hold his hand and just be with him. Well, that sent up red flags to me. So we went in. The doctor walked in. I had never met this doctor because I didn't get there till later in the day and left earlier because I don't drive after dark. And he walked in, shook my hand. I said, I'm the doctor such and such, and your husband is not going to make it. His pancreas is 75% gone, and you cannot live without a pancreas. We will have our meeting at 1 o'clock, and if you want family here, call them. And turned around and walked away. So I went out in the hall and cried a lot and called his sister, and I said, you need to get here right now. So when she got there, they took us into a room, and he had brought the chaplain in, and they explained that how bad he was, that he would not make it, and just kind of left us there. So let's see, that was Saturday. On, I guess, Monday, went back, and there's different times, different things, but Monday went back in, and he was still sedated, and the doctor brought someone in from hospice, and he told me the best thing you could do is put him in hospice, take him off his meds and all the medical devices, and let him go peacefully. And Rick's sister kept insisting, there has to be something, and he kept saying no. So they showed us the hospice, and they talked to us about different things. And so I told him, I said, we can't do anything till Rick's brother comes. And so we decided we would hold off. Well, that doctor went out of town, whether he went to a conference or whether he went to a vacation, I don't know what. But another doctor stepped into his place. I went home on Tuesday to plan a funeral because I knew if he was going to die, I needed to get that taken care of. So my daughter called me Tuesday afternoon, and she said, Mom, the nurses are saying we're rushing this, that we're pushing, and we're doing something they can't stop. And I went, excuse me? And she said, that's what I told them. So Rick's sister went in, they told her the same thing. And Rick's sister is a little fireball, and she started rounding up doctors. She wanted another meeting. So she started asking, why weren't you in this meeting? And anyway, she set up another meeting. And by then, Rick's brother had come to town. And so we had 5 or 6 doctors in this next meeting, and they told us, we will do what we can. We still don't know that we can save him. They said this is a case that we had to go look in the books for because his kidneys, his heart, anything could have given out at any time. So we had our meeting, and they determined that they would try to do something. And then we told them we'll take it day by day, and if he survives, great. And if he doesn't, then we've tried. Within a couple of days, Rick was sitting up in a chair. By Sunday, Easter Sunday, we look back now, he was in his own room. And it didn't stop there. I mean, because in April, he still had this gallbladder that had to be taken out. Well, he went to Springfield, Missouri, and the doctor there said, there's a cyst, and we can't do anything with the cyst. So they sent him to St. Louis, Missouri, to Barnes Jewish Hospital, because they had to remove the cyst and the gallbladder. Well, as it turned out, they somehow drained the cyst, through the stomach and all of that. But then, let's see, that was in April. By June, the cyst had gotten infected. So he had to go back to Barnes to have all of that cleaned out again. Shortly after that, we called an ambulance because he couldn't breathe. He was having a hard time breathing. And so they took him, I guess they air flighted you again to Springfield. And so he had congestive heart failure. Then I think by August, he was had a mini stroke. And they said that it probably was not caused by everything else, but there was in the left side of his brain, which had caused the right side to. And if you don't know the signs of a stroke, please learn them.
Amen.
Because
Amen.
Rick was not sleeping in our room at that time because he could not lay flat. He would sleep in his recliner. And I heard him fall into a chair. And I came out and helped him get up and go in the other room and sit down, and he just didn't look right. So I had read on email or somewhere, have them stick their tongue out. So he stuck his tongue out, and it fell off to the side. And he couldn't smile because it kind of went off to the side. So I told him, I said, "You've had a stroke. We need the ambulance." And he begged me, "Don't make me go back to the hospital. Please don't make me." And I said, "Honey, you have to, because you've had a stroke, and I can't do anything for you." So I called an ambulance, and they made him lift his arms. I guess you can't lift your arms straight out if you've had a stroke. So they air flighted him back to Springfield because they said if it had been bad enough, they would have had to do some kind of special medication. His was not that bad, so they didn't have to do that. But he did have to go. And then, let's see, I guess in September, they were still concerned with his heart, so they've done the monitors and all of that. I guess the good stuff about all this is he was diabetic because of the pancreas. Well, then he had done really well and came off the insulin. And when they did an angiogram, everything was perfectly clear. They said there wasn't even any plaque in his heart, so those were good things. And but it seemed like it was just an ongoing thing. Every time we turned around, something else was happening. So.
Can you identify with some of that? Just some of it, it's just amazing. Now, you don't know anything about it, so.
No,
I
want to thank her again in public and encourage you, men, ladies, find out get those, I think it's FAST or something. And she's right, I begged her, don't call the ambulance. I don't want to go back to the hospital. I'm tired of the hospital. I've rode twice by ambulance to St. Louis, been airlifted, and she did right. I was bad, and that saved my life, I'm sure. And the Lord bless. And then when they took me in with that cyst, the doctor came out and he put 3 stents in my stomach, and he said if you'd waited 2 more days, you wouldn't have been here for that. That right. would have burst, abscessed all over. So yeah. Just, it's a help me. And that's what God created our wives for, men. And I appreciate it. Love her.
All right, now, how did this illness, now that you're a year removed, now he's not healthy. He's back preaching 3 times a week, but he'll never completely, that's not true. He won't recover down here completely.
Amen.
From this. So how has all of this, plus some other surgery and all, how has it affected your marriage? Because a lot less than this dissolves a lot of marriages. Mm-hmm. So how does this affect your marriage?
Oh, you're asking me. I think almost 47 years, knowing her since the third grade, and of course, then I told her I was going to marry her, and she said, "Bet me, Harvey," and I said, "My name's not Harvey," but and we didn't go to the same school, but I hesitate to say this for maybe a lack of misunderstanding, but I think you get comfortable sometimes in your relationship, and when you do that, you jeopardize that relationship. There still needs to be some excitement there, some appreciation there. The love's never drained, but I have a greater appreciation for her. I think it's drawn us closer together. It's just reiterated how intelligent, how smart she is. I didn't know the signs of a stroke. She did, and that was a God thing. She just found it, I think, a few days before or whatever. But it affects her, how she has to cook and prepare meals, because I have to watch the amount of sodium. I have to eat now all the time. I try to eat 6 small meals or small my meals and eat them more to keep my sugar at a balance. So, but basically, I think it's drawn us closer together. I don't know if you can love her anymore, and I already love her. But
yeah, I think also that you learn to appreciate each other better. One of the hard things for me was Rick does all the driving. Rick does most of the decision making, and I had to take on that role, and it was really, really hard for me because we had to do everything in the daytime because I don't see after dark. And there was some decisions that had to be made, and I had to step into that role. It was.
Now, as a next question, as a pastor, you were out of your pulpit how long?
Oh,
9 months. Maybe.
at least 9 months.
9 months. I don't show up for 9 months. 9 months. How did y'all live? How did y'all get funds to live on?
Well, I'll let her tell you. They continue to pray for us. They continue to pay us and support us. And I had been teaching for these last 16 and a half, 17 years now that, I may not always be here. This is not about me. It's about Him. And if God moves me or God takes me home, this is God's church. You need to keep doing it this way. Here we establish guidelines and precedents and principles are from the Word of God. And I said, this is true. This is His, and we need to keep doing that. And the men and women stepped in and kept it going. We lost a few, but we're gaining back. I think I told you today, I don't know, but last Sunday we had 13 visitors. And you got to understand, our county's only got 8,000 people in them, and we don't have any stoplights. We got 3 blinker lights and 2 4-way stops, but no stoplights and very little sidewalks. But it's just a wonderful place to be. But we had 13 visitors there. Maybe we need to be on vacation more. No, but it's going over there. But the Lord blessed and those men and those women. I'm just so thankful for them that. Our church kept on. But through her, I understood she went to them and said, look, you're probably going to have to get a new pastor, so why don't you stop paying us or only pay half and then keep back some so that you'll have some money to move your pastor in and get him established and those kind of things. And the board had a meeting, and they said, no, he's still our pastor. We're going to pay you. And so they did, and we thank God for that.
Amen.
Now, the next question, you have to understand their community. I preached out there. You have to understand their community. What effect has this had in your community?
Well, it has surprised both of us. I didn't realize how much connecting, to use your words in the church to understand, and how important connecting is to the people. And still today, people will come up and they'll say, we prayed for you, and I want to thank, and Edna and I want to thank each and every one of you and those that's not here for your prayers, because it's your prayers is the reason I'm here, and we thank you so much for that. But, and this is kind of like a second home. You folks make us always feel at home. But people come up in restaurants, and when we're out all the time, I prayed for you in Walmart or wherever, and our Walmart's 30 miles away, so that's our closest. But it give me a platform to witness to them. I thank them for their prayers. Do you go to church anywhere? You know, invite, and like I try to always do. You want to add to that?
I think it drew our community closer. I
Yes.
really do. I think they all had one purpose, and each, and I think it drew everyone closer.
All right, question number 9. Now, how has this affected your understanding of verses like Romans 8:28? And we know that all stuff. If he said most, I could deal with that, but the all. Paul said, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. Now, y'all have lived it. And I can promise y'all, and I'm sure about y'all, that the devil came and said, now what do you think about Romans 8:28? Tell us a little bit about what you went through and how all of this has affected your understanding of what Paul was saying there.
Well, for me, there were, and I can only answer for me, but there were times of doubt. I never doubted my salvation. I knew where I was going, and I never once asked God, why me? I figured it's my turn. Why not? And I've learned that, I don't know how God works in your lives, but I've learned in mine, ours, that he always wants to teach us something. Or correct us or teach us. And so I was telling him and asking him, God, what are you trying to teach me? Show me. I'll learn. I even said, Lord, if it's Edna you're trying to teach, let her learn fast. But let's learn this. And I said that over and over, that all things. R.A. Torrey used that verse and used to say it's either in all things or Hebrews 12, a chastisement. And I said, God, if there's something between you and me, forgive me. I know you will. I ask your forgiveness. Show me. I'll make it right. He never showed me anything. And he didn't say all things are good, as you pointed out. Right. It says it works towards his purpose. And I said, Lord, I don't know what your purpose is. Sometimes Satan would get you at some of those 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning times, and you'd want to chuck it in and forget it. And I kept saying, I know I'm saved. You'll never leave me or forsake me, God. I know it's here. And through this process, through the first month or so I was in the hospital, I had the opportunity to lead a man to the Lord I've been witnessing to for 15 years. And John Wheeler. And John come to know the Lord. I had to crawl over because I couldn't walk and to the chair that he was in my hospital room. I was in another chair. Crawled over to him and tried to open my Bible, but I couldn't see it, couldn't read it. And so I explained to him from memory, and I remember whispering a prayer, Jesus, you're going to have to do this. And he accepted the Lord, and he had a set of twins that's accepted the Lord now, and the whole family's baptized in another church away from us in another town. And then I asked myself this question. Was it worth it all? And certainly it's worth a soul. But I said, Rick, if you had to go through it all again for somebody to get saved, would you do it? And folks, I don't know that I'd willingly say yes. I'd witness. I'd do. I used to say I'll crawl across a street on my hands and knees to lead you to the Lord. And I thought about that when I was crawling across that hospital room. I said, I'm not trying to make you a Baptist, but I'll tell you about Jesus. And but there's that side now. I said, I'd still do that, but I don't know if I'm going to go through what I just went through, which this last year, to do it again. And I'd like to say, yes, bless God, I'll just stand right up there and charge hell with a squirt gun. Well, you know, I mean, if the preacher wanted to do it, I'd be behind him encouraging him. But that's how those verses are coming stronger. And greater is he that's in you than that's in this world.
It definitely wasn't good, but we can see just in our own family how it's drawn our family closer together. So,
All right, I'm gonna skip the next question because I think you've sort of already answered. I want to get to the very last. What have y'all, just 2 or 3 things, 4, 5, what do you want to say? But what lessons do you think the rest of us could benefit from? Because most of us have not been where they are. Can you say hallelujah right there? I want to, Lord, I hope you're listening, because I want to learn from them. I do not want to learn it that way.
that's right.
So, what lessons, now that you're on the other side of it, and you've had a chance to sort of digest it and process it, what lessons have you learned from this?
I would have to say prayer for me.
Amen.
Because we had so many people praying, a lot of people praying. And preacher, when the doctor told us that he would not live, we had been trained to trust doctors. And when he told us that, we believed it. So I think that what we've learned is, of course, God is our great physician. God's going to heal, or he's not, whatever. But I think it helped me, because I really had kind of not slid away from God, but I wasn't as faithful in reading my Bible. I wasn't as faithful at praying. And I know when Rick was in the hospital and he's really sick, I was even thinking, God, if this is what it's going to take to get Rick to come home, then I will start reading my Bible better. I will start praying. I just need you to like me again so you'll get Rick well. And I knew that if he was going to take him, then just do it. Don't make me make that choice. But I really think probably the prayer would be the biggest, and knowing that God is in total control no matter what. So.
I agree. It's reiterated many things, exemplified many Bible truths that we know of, and certainly it's important to do what you can do work while the day is light, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. That verse there in James, that life is but a vapor. It's here today, gone tomorrow. It's true. Everything can happen so quickly. So don't put off today till tomorrow. Do what you can do today. That's the only thing to help. And then a verse is in 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my beloved brother, be ye steadfast, unmovable. Well, there were times I was unmovable because of my physical condition, but there's also been times spiritually you be unmovable, and you stay right where you're at doing what God's telling you to do. Always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain. And that Romans 8:28, it's for his purpose. I think I saw what God's done at our church over the years. Our church has paid off. You know that we borrowed $400,000, paid it off early. There's been so many miracles and blessings come through our church, and lives change. It kind of affects my ego. I could do this, man. You know, this is all right. And I realized that I didn't do anything. God did everything. Mm-hmm. And it's all about him. He just was a tool. And that's one of the most amazing things to me. Like I say, it's ongoing. What's the most memorable thing is that he can look down with my background and my personality and my limited abilities and say, I'm going to use you. And he's doing that tonight, folks. There's somebody, young and old alike. He's saying, I still want to use you. You're here. Get tired, okay. Get tired in the ministry, but don't get tired of it. Yeah. Just get out, keep encouraging. And he said, but I'm getting too old. I can't do anything. You can pray, and many of you have, and you can encourage those that are out there working in the ministry and lift them up. Your pastors. Pastor Terry, Pastor Patrick, Pastor Larry, those in the sound booth, those in the Sunday school room, those in the nurseries, be thankful. I can't do that. I can't do everything, and there's a lot of things I don't even want to do. But we can do that, and that's what God has taught me, and I hope I don't ever stop learning that.
I'm going to take a little bit of liberty, and as you're going back to Missouri, 2 air flights, several ambulance rides, weeks in the hospital. How many of you know this could lead to disaster financially? That could lead you to financial ruin. Tell them what God did. Tell them what God did financially. Tell them where you are now.
I don't understand. Explain it to me.
All right.
Insurance and.
Oh.
From when he got sick, they owed on their house, they owed on their cars.
I'm with you. Okay. Lord bless. I don't hear as well all the time either, and sometimes that's a blessing. But God, not only is our church debt free, our house, we paid our house off. We didn't owe anything on insurance. I had a defibrillator. Is the last thing they did. They put in, and one night in the hospital, and that was the hospital bill came in $84,000. But thank God that for 20 years in the Army, but the insurance has paid everything so far, and so we don't owe anything, and we're like I say, we're debt free, and man, it's freeing. It's freeing to be debt free, and because there was a time in our lives, folks, that maybe some of you are the same way. We had mismanaged our finances. I had mismanaged our finances. And one day I said, I couldn't even take a missionary out to lunch. And I told Edna right then, I said, that's not going to happen again. And from that, the Lord's blessed, and we've tithed, and we've never looked back. And I mentioned Sunday morning very briefly, some of you may remember. When Satan fights, we give some more. When Satan attacks, we give some more. Now, sometimes that can't be much, but it's never been equal giving. It's always been equal sacrifice. And God blesses a cheerful giver. God will even bless one that pinches the pennies. God blesses that. Is that what you were asking, sir?
Final word.
We thank you all for your prayers, because we know that without all the prayers, all God's people praying, then we may not be sitting here today. And we just appreciate, we've had missionaries all over the world and churches all over the United States praying, and we appreciate that so much.
All right, we were going to open up for questions, but our time's gone. The kids are getting out. So here's what we're going to do. Kill these 2 mics, if you would. I'm going to ask y'all to take that off, and I'm going to ask y'all just to go down front here. We're going to have a word of prayer here in just a second. And if you would like to talk to Brother Rick Miss Edna, maybe y'all just sit down there, and maybe you'd like to have a word with him. Maybe you need for him to pray for you. Maybe you have a similar situation. I don't know. They're here. They're not going to be here but another couple of days. So if you'd like to talk to them, they'd be glad to make themselves available to you. And maybe they can be a blessing. Maybe they can be a help to you. I hope so. I hope tonight's been a help to you. I hope it's been a blessing to you. I hope their story and their experience can maybe save somebody else some heartache. And maybe you can take the things that they've learned, apply them to your life, or maybe share it with somebody else. This will be on our website. And when, Jennifer? Tomorrow? Can we get it up tomorrow? Tonight? It'll be on that tonight. And you can tell somebody to go to the website, and they can see it, and maybe it'll be a help to somebody. That's what we're trying to do here tonight. So come on, stand up with us if you would, please.